All right, so a couple things to keep in mind. If you open and there's already a bunch of pages and stuff, you're probably going to want to do a new document. The easiest way to do that is kind of this picture of a home. Go to the home screen, click a new document, and I have the option to save. I didn't have anything important here, so I'm not going to save. And then I can kind of choose what kind of pages I want to add. The ones that we're going to use the most are here, the calculator. This second graphing, not as much. That's more for your algebra graphing. Does some cool geometry. We're not going to do it. We're going to use 1, 4, and 5. List and spreadsheets, and then data and statistics, so we're going to do our statistics graphing. Does that make sense? Okay. And if I already added a calculator, that's going to do your basic arithmetic, like what, 2 times 3, you know. There's our basic arithmetic stuff, like what a standard calculator does, right? And if I wanted to add another page to this, rather than make a new document, I can go to the home, and I can go down here, and I can actually just choose. Okay, so here's my regular calculator. If I scroll over, there's our list and spreadsheets, and here's our graphing histograms and stem leaf plot, all that stuff. Okay, all right. If I want to go back to the page I was on, I hit 4 for current, and it'll take me back to where I was. Does that make sense? Okay. This calculator has what's called pretty print. So little math problems like this, let's just agree right now, do these two have the same answer? One says 3 times 4 squared, and the other one says 3 times 4 squared. So you're saying it, right? But they're not the same, are they? No. And you have to keep track of all that in your calculator. And if you're using an 83 and 84, you're going to have to use like lots of little groupings and parentheses to keep track of that, right? So when I go to my calculator, if I want to do 3 times 4 squared, AV, there we go, I would do 3 times 4, and then I choose this little x to the 2. It's the same on the other ones, and it puts a little squared up there, right? And if I want to do the second one, 3 times 4 squared, I would need to make sure I put that 3 times 4 in what? So I would start with parentheses, 3 times 4 squared. And like I said, the reason I want you to have the calculator is to verify you're getting the same numbers and kind of learning how this thing works. Okay? And we agreed those are not the same, are they? Okay? So those parentheses and those groupings, they all matter. They all make an impact on how we get our answers. So we got 48 and 144. Let me put that in. 48 and 144. So look at our second example. 3 plus 2 divided by 9 squared plus 19. That's a lot to keep track of in an 83 and 84. You have to make sure, right, if I just did 3 plus 2, this is kind of for you, if I did you 83, 84, if I did 3 plus 2 divided by, that's not going to work, is it? And then I could, because I need to make sure, apparently I'm going to be jumpy here, I need to make sure that that 3 plus 2 is grouped together, so I got to go back and I got to add parentheses outside of the 3 plus 2. And then when I go to the bottom, I can't just do 9 squared plus 19. I also have to make sure that that gets what? So 9 squared plus 19. Wouldn't it be nice if there was an easier way to group those? There is. Okay? Now, one cool thing, if you have one of the 84s, they have the option to update the operating system, and a lot of this functionality has been added. They call it pretty print, where the exponents don't keep the scary little spike with the... So there is a way, if you have a calculator that has an updated operating system, that your 84s can operate a lot more like this. But let me show you something that was one of my favorite things. If I wanted to do this without keeping track of a bunch of parentheses, I would hit Control, Divide. What does that do? It creates a top and a bottom. That's a lot easier to keep track of what's on the top and what's on the bottom this way. Does that make sense? So now all I do is I put the 3 plus 2 on the top, and I put the 9 squared plus 19 on the bottom. You okay with that? Now my calculator is set up in the form to give me the most exact answer, and that generally is a fraction. Okay. If you're using an 8384, sometimes we want the answers as decimals, sometimes we want them as fractions, okay? But if I had something like 1/7 or 1/3 or where that's like a complicated looking decimal, okay, it's easier or more convenient to keep it as a fraction. So that's what my calculator does. What if I wanted the decimal for this? Well, Control Enter, okay? And you can actually go in and you can change the settings to always give you the decimal, but I like the most exact answer, and I'll kind of show you some more features there. But I can take the same answer and hit Control Enter, and you see the little squiggly equal sign there? And it gives me that same thing as a decimal. Does that make sense? For you 8384 calculators, yours is giving it to you as a decimal. You can turn that back into a fraction. It's in math. There's like the math button, and then you go answer the fraction. And so you can go back and forth, options. Okay? All right, so approximation, when I hit that, I got 0.05. Is this making sense so far? We're almost done. This really is, like I said, just making sure we know how to operate the calculator. Okay? We should have all seen the square root of 125 before now, correct? And we've broken that sucker apart and circled groups and simplified. We learned all that duty. No pun intended. But if I take this and I put the square root of 125, it's going to keep it in the most exact simplified form, which means it will keep it as a radical. I like that. Because if I have to round off stuff, this is keeping an exact answer, 5 root 5, right? I like that feature. So I could do 5 root 5. What if I wanted the approximate answer? What would I do? I could go into the whole thing and change the settings, or just push Control. If I push this little Control before I push Enter, it'll give me the decimal. 11.1803. Here's a problem. What if I wanted that to 5 decimal places? I only see 4 there, right? And that could be a 2. Or you can change the settings. What's easier, though, is if I just scroll up and I hit Enter, that's as many decimal places as they'll give me. Think that's enough? Right? So then if I 180339887949, so you see what I'm saying? So it's all in there, they just don't display it all to you. So I can go grab it, bring it down, and go. So if I wanted 5 decimal places, 1803, and that 3 would change to a 4. Okay? So make sure that you're comfortable switching 03 and getting, we generally aren't going to need 5 or 6 decimal places. The only time, and I actually really like, the homework does a good job, they call it attention to precision. They're going to want your answers to be pretty exact in the homework. That's a good skill. Okay? On the test, wherever I can, I try to give a little bit of wiggle room on decimal answers, things like that, because we round things. Okay? The homework is going to make you keep it as precise as possible, and that's annoying, but that's an important skill. If I'm dealing with statistics, I want things to be processed as exactly as possible. Okay? I'm more forgiving on the tests. I let the homework be the jerk about it. Okay? All right. I'm going to start talking now about lists. If you got an 8384, yours is all in the stat edit and all those lists. I can go over that with you later. The book will have explanations of that. The Learning Center has tutors. I can help you. There's options. Okay? But I'm going to focus on just the Inspire. I can't be switching back all semester. It's not going to work. Okay? I'm also, just so you know, some of you are like, oh man, I wish I had just got the Inspire, or I wish I could have switched it before class. I am actually recording this right now. So I have this available. If you're like, I really like to go through this, again, with the calculator in my hand, email me and I can send you a link. Or search me, I guess, on YouTube. Because I'm starting to post these on YouTube. Okay? All right, I'm excited about putting math on YouTube. I'm going to destroy your internet. Okay. All right, so let's set up a list of data. The way that the Inspire does it is they have a letter with these brackets. Okay, so first of all, on the calculator, how do I get to my list of data. That's going to be a new page. How do I get a new page? Go back to the home, right? Go home. Don't get excited. All right, there we go. Which one looks like a list of spreadsheets? Yeah, no, not the orange one. Fourth one over. In fact, it'll say lists and spreadsheets. And what I like is that this actually has a lot of the same functionality and the same commands that we use in Excel, right? Because a lot of people don't have access to calculators all the time, but if you have a computer and you have Windows and you have Excel, a lot of these almost exact same commands and things can be done in Excel. So this skill translates into that. Does that make sense? Okay. Versus the 83s and 84s are a totally different language. So that's one of the reasons I like the Inspire, is because the stuff that you're learning here, if you're a business major or if you're going to be processing data as a scientist, you need to know this kind of stuff. Make sense? All right. So if I go up here, that's basically A. I'm going to go down here. I'm going to input the numbers. I think we just said 1 through 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Is that okay? In column B, I would like to take all the data from A and what? Square it. That's not impressive. I can do 1, 4, 9, 16. Right? We can do that, right? But I want you to show how I want you to see how the calculator does it. Go up to this kind of where there's an equal sign, and that's where you type in any command that we want to do on the list. Okay, ready for this? And I'm going to tell it, take all the data from A, so I have to do A bracket. You see how the language works there? And then just this x squared, just square it. And like I said, you're looking at that and going, that's not very impressive. I could have done that, right? But if I was dealing with 500 numbers, do you see where this might save you some effort? You could square 500 numbers like that. Okay? Let's write those down. So we get 1, 4, 9, 16, 25. Is that all right? For C, I would like to take the information in column A and do a square root. We're going to have equations where we have to do square roots for our statistics. So all I do there is I go over to C, make sure I go to where there is a equal sign. The most common thing when people using the Inspires and they freak out and something's not working, they accidentally deleted the equal sign, and anything you type in will freak out. You have to keep that equal sign in there. Okay? That is just the way it's, and Excel's the same way actually. They put a little equal sign if you want to put a command. Okay? So what are we doing? So the square roots of A. Oops, too many. Go back. All right. The square root of A. You ready for this? Square root of 1 is 1, square root of 2 is 2, square root of 3 is root 3. That's not terribly helpful, is it? Because, what's the square root of 5? Root 5. Thanks. Right? What if I wanted that as a decimal? I could go in and I could change my settings. And I can make all my settings to just always put out a decimal. I like when it simplifies radicals and keeps them exact. If you don't like that, you can change that in the settings. Okay? What I'm going to show you now is actually a little more advanced. So what did we get? We got the square root of 1 is 1. We got root 2. We got root 3. The square root of 4 is 2. And we got root 5, correct? What if I wanted my approximate answer? Well, it's not that hard. You put one word in front of the command. You put the word approx. And that's the calculator's way of going, I don't want this exact answer. I want the approximate answer. Does that make sense? Okay. This is advanced. I don't think this may come up once or twice in when we're doing real stuff, but you don't need to worry about this on a test. I want to show you some of the stuff it can do. So if I went up here and I changed, and in front of that square root I added the word approx. A-P-P-R-O. I need you to see something. Do you see all the letters? What happens when I put an X? So what just changed? It was italicized, and now it's not. That's actually a good hint. What that means is the minute if I had a pro, it thinks I'm trying to name something, like a variable, X, Y, Z, right? The minute I put approx, it goes, oh, I know that. That's a command in the calculator, in the menus. This is a cool thing about the Inspires too, is all of the commands that we use, you can look through and find them in menus, and that's really nice, but you can also just type them in the calculator. The minute you hit that last letter, it goes, oh, do you want to approximate this? It recognizes that. Kind of nice. Anyway, so when I do that, now what did it do? Gave me all the answers as approximate decimals. Does that make sense? Okay. So we got, what was it? 1, 1.41, 1.73, 2, and 2.24. Approximately. Okay. Here's where I'm going to blow some of your minds. Okay? Ready for this? This is another Windows thing that the first time I found out the calculator did this, I cried myself to sleep. It was beautiful. Okay? What if I wanted to copy this list of data? How do I copy stuff in Windows? If I'm using Microsoft Word and I want to copy a text I use, or in the email on the internet, if I want to copy, it's always Control. What if I want to copy something in my calculator? Control C, right? What if I want to paste it after I copy it? That's Control V. What if I want to cut something? Control X. These are actual things that you can use outside of this math class. These are skills that you can apply if you're wanting to copy and paste documents. These are good skills. Does that make sense? That's why another reason I like this calculator. It brings skills beyond this class. Okay? What does Control Z do? This calculator will undo. I love it the first time I have somebody, we're doing something with data, and they raise their hands, and they're pale. Because we just typed in 50 numbers, and they're like, I just deleted them all. Undo it. Control Z. They come back. I think that's cool. That's a nice feature, isn't it? If I undo something and I want to actually bring it back, you can Control Y, you can redo. That's not one we use as often. And what Shift does, and I'm going to go through and show you all these, but what Shift does is that it will highlight if I want to choose. Well, you can use that too if I'm choosing multiple files. I hold Shift down and I can scroll through. When I'm moving pictures, I'm not clicking and moving them one at a time. I'm holding Shift and I'm highlighting a bunch at a time. Does that make sense? All right. So like I said, those of you who have the 83s, 84s, you're kind of sad right now. You'll be okay. I'm just going to show you some features. So what do we say? I could take all this in A. If I want to take all of A, I go push it up all the way, and I could highlight the entire column. And if I wanted to copy it, I would choose Control what? C. Okay. And if I wanted to stick it right there in D, I would put Control V. And we just copied and pasted that column. Is that pretty cool? If I wanted to cut it, I would put Control X. Not only has it disappeared, we didn't just delete it, we actually cut it. It's being saved in the background, so I could go over somewhere else and paste it if I really wanted to, right? Maybe. It's nice when things don't work when I ask them to. Control V. There we go. If I wanted to undo, I'm like, I'm not really wanting to do what I just did, right? Control undoes that, undoes that, undoes that, undoes that, I can undo, I don't know how far back, like freaking every letter. Okay? Control Z. If I want to redo, Control Y, puts it all one letter at a time back in. Yes? Well, when I highlight the entire column, it'll grab every single piece of data. But let's say I didn't want every single piece. Let's say I only wanted the first 5 numbers, right? That's where I would go over where I want. And you literally, you see the shift button? You literally hold that button down and you can highlight just the numbers that you want and copy and paste and cut and all that. Does that make sense? So what I was doing by going and pushing up is I'm selecting the entire column. If there were 5,000 numbers, it would grab all 5,000 numbers right now. Does that make sense? Okay. We're going to be having some practice in the homework with that. I'm going to explain the homework in just a minute, how that works, but does this all make sense? Okay. Most of that, now, what if you want to print? You hit Control P, right? No, this doesn't print, sorry. He's like, that's cool. No, not yet. All right. For the graphing, and this is just a key feature, you're not going to be graphing in the homework yet. That comes up. I want to say we're not going to do any real formal graphing till Chapter 3. Okay? Most of what we do in Chapter 2, you should be able to do by hand. But if you do want to graph, the weird thing about the Inspires, there's really only two things that are kind of weird, is you must name the data. Okay? So I want to show you kind of how some of the graphs work. We'll be starting next week looking at some graphs. A lot of that we're going to be doing by hand anyway, but the calculator does do some things. Okay? So you must name the data if you're using an Inspire. So if I wanted to graph, say for instance, there we go, A versus B, the numbers versus the numbers squared, right? I would need to go up here and I would need to give this a name. I go to the very top, and that's where I name it. And I literally could just call it A if I wanted to. Or if this was a person's age, I could call it age. I could give it whatever. You can't put things like X or Y or Z. Those are protected because they think those count for other things, right? But you can name it age. You could even, if you're like, it's the X variable though, then write X variable. Okay? Just don't put just X, but you can name it. So if it was age and, I don't know, let's say like IQ, I could put IQ. And it would do age versus IQ. Does that make sense? How would I graph it? From the home screen? Which one is my picture of statistics graphs? The second one is algebra graphs, right? Where's my statistics graphs? All the way, that kind of pinkish one. Data and statistics. Sorry, I know it looks horrible. Okay? Here's our points. Here's our numbers. They just kind of scattered them in there for visual effect. What if I wanted to add the X variable and put age down there? Literally, all I do is I scroll the arrow down, and I can use these arrows here, kind of go down and right and down and right. Take forever, but you can get there, and you go down there and you click. And what did I want to put down there? Age. But the idea is it has to be named for it to show up here. Does that make sense? So there would be the age, and there's our 5 points, 1 through 5. Make sense? If I wanted to graph it versus IQ, if I wanted to make IQ the Y variable, then I use that little, I scroll back over, you know, and kind of left. It's not moving now. Okay, left and up, and I click there, and I say, put what there? And that's how we would get something like a scatter plot. Does that make sense? Any questions on that? We're not doing scatter plots yet. They'll come up a little bit in the next chapter. They do a good job of kind of introducing them, and then we get into all the real statistics behind scatter plots. That's one of our last chapters, one of the easiest chapters we do. Okay, but it's at the very end. But we'll kind of introduce the idea of scatter plots. We will be doing histograms, and so what I will do. What if I wanted to get back? Here's another thing. What if I wanted to get back to my data that was like where I had all those lists? I could literally scroll up and choose between the tabs. It's like tabs on your an internet browser. You see that? Isn't that cool? I think so. You're like, whatever, it's math. I can also, if I hold Control down, I can do Control right and Control left and just scroll between them. Okay? I don't know if that works on your computer. Windows might need to catch up. But I'm going to go to column D, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create some data for a histogram. Okay? So if you have an Inspire, do this with me. I want you to see some of the features. If not, like I said, I'm recording this. You're going to get Inspire later. You can try it out. But I'm going to put 3 1s 4 2s, 6 3s, 2 4s, and a 5. Now this is different than our previous data, right? I have multiple 1s, multiple 2s. This would be like if I was to poll you guys and ask you your age. There's going to be some repetition in the data, right? And what we do then is we group, everyone has their kind of group, and then I count the frequency of each in it. Does that make sense? Okay, we're going to be doing histograms, but I want to show you kind of how the calculator does this. But first, I have to make sure I do what with the data? It has to be named on the Inspire. It's kind of weird, but you get used to it. And I'll just say this is my, oops, don't do that. Undo, undo, there we go. This is my histogram. Right? And so now, I don't really want to mess with this picture. It's already so pretty. So I'm going to add a new one. So I'm going to go back home, hit enter, and there's a new one. So that other one's still there. This just lets me do more. Does that make sense? My variable, what are we doing this time? Now this is what's called a dot plot. It just shows us the frequency by dots. So I had 3 1s, 4 2s, 6 3s. See how that works? Okay. If I want to turn this into a histogram, menu, what do you think? Where might I change the type of graph I have? Plot what? If I do properties, does any of that look like I could make a histogram? Not really, but I honestly, I don't always remember where everything is. Sometimes I have to search menus, like on the computer, right? Where might I change the type of graph that I have? Okay. We can do a box plot, we can do a histogram, and we'll probability plot. Right now we're looking at a, you see that? Every column with their numbers, frequencies listed on the left. Does that make sense? You can do some more advanced things with this. I don't recommend, like I said, for the chapter on histograms, you need to be able to make a histogram by hand. They're going to be a smaller list of numbers. You're going to create the classes, count the frequency, fill in the graph by hand. You need to be able to do this stuff by hand. We are not going to always do histograms by hand. As we got bigger sets of data, we need to check a histogram. We're going to let the calculator spit it out. Okay? But for the chapter on histograms, you need to be able to do this by hand. Okay? But I am going to show you some more advanced things just because I care. Under Window Zoom, nope, under Plot Properties, you see where it says Histogram Properties. If I wanted to change the width of each of those columns, because currently they're 1 wide, all the 1s are all the 2s, all the 3s, I could actually group them and say, I want the 1s and 2s together, the 3s and 4s together. I can group them like that. Okay? Under the properties, it's under the bin settings or binary settings, and I can say I want an equal width of 2. So now instead of doing like 1s, 2s, 3s, it makes each one what? 2 wide. See how that works? You're like, yeah, but I can't see that one. Okay, watch this. You go up to one of these lines, and you click. Right here is where you kind of just click and hold. And if you click that, it changes it to a hand that's closed. And I literally can just pull this down until I get the picture I want. I can do the same thing on the x-axis. You're like, I don't really like the way the width looks on this. Okay, go to one of those lines, grab it, click and hold. You got a closed hand, and I can kind of scoot it in or scoot it out until I like the way it looks. Does that make sense? This is way more advanced than you need. Okay, but if I was going to be publishing data and I wanted a nice looking graph, I would come in here and I would modify all this. Does that make sense? Okay, you're not going to need to know how to do all this for the class. These are life skills. Okay. Okay, I think graphing we talked about. One more thing. Last but not least, everyone gets to write this down. You're welcome. For statistics, because we only have like 2 hours, I don't generally take breaks. So if you need to use facilities, find a friend that can take notes while you're gone and run out. Okay? Just because sometimes we literally will go from the beginning to the end of straight lecture. And I know that's not fun, but that's college. Okay? I've designed the class where we have quizzes, but we'll have like days where we focus on quizzes. Today we'll focus on a quiz. It should be quick though. Okay? Ideally, this should take me maybe another 8 minutes, and then if you need to take a break then, that's fine. You'll have a short quiz. If you're up to date on the homework, it should be a very easy quiz, and you should be out of here about 20 minutes early. It's not, that means I get 20 minutes later, right? But plan on kind of bell to bell. Okay? All right. What is 6.7 to the 15th? Can we agree that's big? Okay. You think my calculator can handle that? Probably. But I'm not going to type it in here, right? I could make a whole new document and all that. I don't really want to. I could scroll back and find where I did calculations before. Okay? Or there's this little button that looks like a, I don't even know how to describe that. It's like a screen on a screen, or I don't know. But if I click that, it opens up a scratch pad where I can do some quick mathematics. This is really nice if I need to do just some quick math. I push this button, it pops it up, then I go back to my graph and mess with things. Okay? The only thing with this is it operates outside of the document. So you remember I named information like histogram? Okay? If I were to type in histogram here, it's like, what are you talking about? It's separate from the document. So it doesn't keep any of that information. Okay? So beware with that. It won't do anything with lists. But I can do 6.7 caret raised to the 15. Okay? If you type this in as your answer, or if you write your answer like this on a quiz or a test, that will not be full credit. It's not. If you write 2.46106, 2.46106, E, what was it, 12? That's not a proper way of writing that answer. What the heck does that E mean? It's basically a way of doing scientific notation. All it literally means is what? Times. That's all it means. Times 10 to the 12. This would be writing the answer in scientific notation. That top part is a language that Texas Instruments has created so that if it means times 10 to the 12th, they stick an E there. This is not Introduction to Statistics brought to you by Texas Instruments. I'm sorry. They don't pay me enough. Okay? So we don't get to use their specific lingo. What's proper lingo? Scientific notation. But just know that's what that means. Does that make sense? Now, I'm not going to give you like no credit, full credit on something like that, but that's not proper. Does that make sense? What would be better, and I wouldn't really want to do this, but what does times 10 to the 12th mean? The decimal's going to move. So if you really want, for fun and giggles, take the decimal and move it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and add in the zeros. That means more than E12. Does that make sense? What if I had 6.7 to the negative 15? Right? Do I want to make, that's going to be a much smaller number, right? By the way, I just intuitively do this. Well, if I want to do 6.7 to the negative 15, I don't retype it. I push up twice. Do you see where I'm highlighting it? And I hit enter and it brings it down. I am so lazy, right? But I could go up there and I could copy and paste things. If you go up and you just enter it, bring it down, change that 15 to a what? Make sure you can do this in your calculator. Is that your answer? No, it should be what? 4.06329. 4.06329. What does that E mean? Times 10 to the negative 13. Any questions, concerns on that?